have a major election coming up, and gun violence is on the top of the list of priorities for many voters here in the city of Toledo. So what is your plan to address it?
Well, what you're seeing here today actually is part of the plan. You know, we created an office in city government that had never been created before, the mayor's initiative to reduce gun violence. Jawan, that you heard speak today, he's the director of that initiative. And part of what you're seeing on a day like today is the sort of outreach and message spreading that we think is important. The fact of the matter is, with a problem like gun violence, which is happening, unfortunately, all over the country. I mean, literally every big city is facing the same thing. It's obviously not just Toledo. With a problem that complex, there is no one solution. There's a number of solutions. So this is what you're seeing here today, and this entire initiative is part of a unique way that we're trying to tackle this problem. We've also declared gun violence to be a public health crisis, because we think it is, which requires long-term investments in neighborhoods and people's health and their education. And also a component of it is making sure that we have the right number of police officers who are well-trained and reflect the diversity of our community. And we're doing that too. The 12 years prior to me becoming mayor, the size of the police force had gone steadily down. I'm the first mayor in almost 15 years to grow the size of the force. But just as important as growing it, the classes that we've brought on have been the most diverse we've seen in 40 years to make sure that our safety forces reflect the diversity of Toledo. And the training that they are receiving, we've now opened it up to the public so we can transparently make sure that that community police relationship is what we want it to be. So, look, anyone who will tell you that there's a simple 3-point, 5-point, 10-point plan to solve crime obviously doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're trying to trick you. It's a complex problem that requires a lot of different solutions, and we're trying them. I know one thing it certainly doesn't involve, and that's laying off police officers. I mean, my goodness, I don't think anyone would agree that that's the right thing to do. We need to keep moving forward, and I think initiatives like this are helpful.
And that's what I wanted to touch on, during our conversation, is that there are concerns about diversity within the Toledo Police Department. And there are many people that believe that is part of the problem why we're seeing so much gun violence. So do you have a plan to address that?
Oh, no, absolutely. And we're actually, I don't know that I don't know that anyone is arguing that our police department is not diverse. I think what we've heard this last week is that the upper command officers and at the top levels of the department aren't diverse, and that's true. We do not have enough diversity among our deputy chiefs, our chief, our lieutenants and captains. There's no question about that. What we have done under my time as mayor, the classes of cadets that I have brought in under my time have, based on both percentage and raw numbers, are the most diverse we've seen since 1983. Doing that creates a pool of diverse candidates that will grow into leadership positions. And now it's frustrating because that strategy takes time, but it's the right thing to do, and we're making progress. So I don't know, I'm not certain that diversity department-wide is as much a concern as at the very top, where it absolutely is. And that's why we're trying to grow the pool of talented candidates to recruit from.
What does the turnout for today's event indicate for you?
I think it indicates that people are interested in promoting peace in our neighborhoods. People care. People want to be a part of the solution. We had never done anything like this. This is the first one of these. We didn't know if 10 people were going to show up, or 15, or 100. I think it's closer to 200. And I think that, and when you look at the crowd, there are people, all different races, all different colors and creeds and ages. A lot of folks here live in Toledo. Some folks have come from, Sylvania. It shows that all people, no matter who you are, where you live, they all want to be part of the solution, and this is an important first step of how you can be a part of the solution.
Community Focus continues in just 15 seconds. Coming up, my interview with mayoral candidate Carty Finkbeiner. Of course, you were here at the rally to address gun violence. So why do you think it's important, of course, with this election coming up, to campaign and be in these types of communities?
Well,
our country shouldn't want to be a developed nation with so much gun violence, so many innocent men and women hurt. And there's no question that the intention today was to suggest to young people that guns don't really ultimately solve any problem. All they do is create more hurt, more animosity, and pain, particularly for the families that experience it. I happen to be a long time advocate of taking muzzle firing machine guns away from everybody but the officially designated peace officers of a community or a country. Nobody, no hunter needs a automatic firing machine gun. And weapons have become much more commonplace, much more seen, much more prevalent in our communities. Too many people have gone into schools with guns, and too many others have not only gone into schools with guns, but have used their weapons to kill fellow students. So I think the march was extremely important. I know that the group that marched today is 100% behind us, really cherishing peace in the world and peace in our hometowns. There just isn't an answer in the form of violence to any disagreement between people. That was emphasized today, and I couldn't believe in it more. I've lived a blessed life, and yet too many people that I've known are not here today because the gunshot went off, and they were not even the target, but an innocent victim of that gunshot. So I really appreciated the end where Dr. Brock and Willie Perryman, and as well as the leader of today's march, emphasized peace, emphasized not striking back. Remember, two greatest leaders in the history of our world were Mahatma Gandhi in India and Martin Luther King, not just in this country, but worldwide. He was a peacemaker, and their names have lived long, while most of us can't remember the name of anybody who was a person creating violence and using weapons and encouraging others to use weapons. But we remember the peacemakers, and that's where we all belong, on the side of the peacemakers.
You and your opponent, Mayor Kapszukiewicz, recently participated in a forum so residents could hear your thoughts on some of the issues the city is facing now. And Mayor Kapszukiewicz said that we cannot have 19th century solutions to 20th century problems. So what do you think was the motive kind of behind that? And do you agree with him on that?
I do not. I think the mayor has done some things that have been appropriate to do in our community. I think the response to violence has been very, very non-protective of roughly 272,000 Toledoans. Young men that mean well, young men plus Joan himself. I know they mean well. I also know that they do not have the resources or the numbers of people backing them up that the combination of our police department, our sheriff's department, and our Ohio Highway Patrol have. I was confronted by Bloods and Crips who were just becoming powerful here. They had come out of California, and we got clubs here in Toledo, Ohio. And they were using as an initiation fee, shooting innocent men and women, waiting for a TARTA bus to pick them up and take them to their next stop. I believe we either had 6 or 7 citizens killed at those bus stops as part of an initiation fee. Do I think those young men really knew what they were doing? No, I don't. That's why I offered members of their gangs jobs to come to work for the city of Toledo, and about 50 of them accepted jobs cleaning our streets, cleaning our alleys, cleaning our parks. We even got some people that were skilled in carpentry to teach them how to refurbish and rehab homes that were in bad shape. But there must be those who've accepted a commitment that they will put their lives on the line to stop a bullet for a citizen, or that they will act to stop perpetrators of violence in our community. Those young men, God bless them, they're not trained to do that, and it hasn't worked. We've now got 55, I believe, murders in our city, approaching 60. I just think the increase over the last 4 or 5 years was not necessary, and it could have been curbed. It could have been brought to a halt when I acted to put the police and the sheriff and the Ohio Highway Patrol together. We started that 2 days before Labor Day on a Friday night in the Old West End. We did not have another murder in Toledo for 89 days. The day before Thanksgiving, we had our next murder in the city of Toledo. So Toledo young men and women, I don't think of as bad. I think of them as confused, as mixed up, as seeking respect and dollars and cents to put in their pockets. And I think the city has a responsibility to try to find jobs that will clean up our city and put these principally young men to work, cleaning up our city, getting paid a wage to do so, and treated with respect. But if they fail to accept that opportunity, they have to accept that we aren't going to put up with any more innocent men and women being killed, and we aren't going to put up with one gang member shooting somebody in another gang. That isn't going to be part of the culture of Toledo, Ohio, either. Along the way of life, a young man like yourself, had you not been fortunate, had you not had mom and dad protecting you fully, could have ended up in the way of a bullet. And what a loss that would have been, not only to your mom and dad, but to this entire community. A mayor's job is to make sure that that type of a situation or circumstance isn't very probable to have happened in Toledo, Ohio.
Your campaigning has been strongly on boosting up the police force and ensuring that law enforcement is equipped to address these issues. But a lot of residents, they voice concerns about the fact that this really isn't a community-based approach, one that's hyper-local, and that's happening in a neighborhood like the one we're standing in now.
Well, actually, the mayor has been rather boastful about the number of police officers that he has added and that he now, with the additional money from Washington, is going to add. I have not. I don't think this should be a numbers challenge. I think it is deployment of your men and women. And right now, I believe our police men and women are not being led by the chief of police and the mayor to understand that we have a responsibility to citizens to not let random violence and gunfire break out in our city. Secondly, I believe that we need additional training to deal with the mentally ill, that some of whom have gotten hurt badly, and we didn't know that they were mentally ill, and they are no longer with us. And I think there's some remorse on the part of those who fired their weapons, and I'm talking about a police weapon, at a mentally challenged individual, and we didn't know that he was mentally challenged. So I don't think this is a numbers game of trying to outnumber the challenging youth. I think it is properly dispatching your officers with training in handling mentally challenged individuals and expecting our officers to use peaceful means as long as peaceful means are appropriate and will work. If the other side suggests that the only thing they want to do is fire a weapon back at our law enforcement officers, I think that's a mistake on their part, and I don't think that that view would prevail as acceptable in our city. But I have not taken the approach and haven't even put it. I think I did say that I did think that the numbers we have presently would probably require somewhere in the vicinity, I said, of 70 to 80 police classes in the near future. But I don't think it's a numbers game. I think it's rather a mental approach and good organization and teamwork, collaboration between our police, the sheriff, and the Ohio Highway Patrol. They didn't charge us when I used the sheriff and Ohio Highway Patrol. They did it as an in-kind contribution to the city of Toledo because sometimes they will need our help and work to be done. So I've never looked at this as anything other. Life is kind of about defining boundaries, and those who are frustrated with life, there's a defining boundary. You must help yourself or get friends to help you, but you don't have the right because you're frustrated at picking up a weapon and discharging that weapon, particularly towards someone who has done nothing to hurt you or hurt our community.
Mayoral candidate Carty Finkbeiner, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jaden.